Juki, Affirmation by Eihei Dogen from Shobogenzo, the Treasury of the True Dharma I. The great truth transmitted one to one by the Buddhist patriarchs is affirmation. Those who lack a Buddhist patriarch's learning in practice have never seen it even in a dream. With respect to the timing of this affirmation, affirmation is given even to those who have not yet established the Bodhi mind. Affirmation is given to those who are without the Buddha nature, and affirmation is given to those who have the Buddha nature. Affirmation is given to existent bodies, and affirmation is given to non-existent bodies. Affirmation is given to Buddhas. The Buddhas maintain and rely upon the affirmation of the Buddhas. We should not learn that they become Buddha after receiving affirmation, and we should not learn that they receive affirmation after becoming Buddha. In the moment of affirmation, there is becoming Buddha, and in the moment of affirmation, there is practice. For this reason, there is affirmation in the Buddhas, and there is affirmation in the ascendant state of Buddha. Affirmation is given through the self, and affirmation is given through the body and mind. To be fulfilled in the learning of, an adept in the great matter of affirmation, is to be fulfilled in the learning of, an adept in the great matter of the Buddha's truth. Affirmation is present before the body, and affirmation is present after the body. There is affirmation recognized by the subject, and there is affirmation not recognized by the subject. There is affirmation that others are made aware of, and there is affirmation that others are not made aware of. Remember, affirmation has realized the self, and affirmation is just the self which has been realized. Therefore, what has been received from the Buddhas and the patriarchs, rightful successor to rightful successor, is nothing other than affirmation. There is not a single Dharma that is other than affirmation. How much less could the mountains, rivers, and the earth, or Sumeru and the vast oceans, be other than affirmation? Beyond it, there is not a single or even a half of a third son of Chang, or a fourth son of Li. Affirmation that we investigate like this is being able to express the truth in one phrase, is being able to hear the one phrase, is not understanding the one phrase, and is grasping understanding of the one phrase. It is action itself, and it is the act of preaching. It directs a step backwards, and it directs a step forward. That we are able to sit wearing the robe today could never have been realized without our receiving the affirmation that has come from the ancient past. because we put the palms together and humbly place the robe upon the head. Reality is affirmation. The Buddha said, there are many kinds of affirmation, but if I now briefly summarize them, there are 8 kinds as follows. 1. The subject knows, others do not know. 2. Everybody else knows, the subject does not know. 3. Both the subject and everybody else knows. 4. Neither the subject nor everybody else knows. 5. The near realize it, the far do not realize it. 6. The far realize it, the near do not realize it. 7. Both the near and the far realize it. 8. Neither the near nor the far realize it. Another sutra says, there are those affirmations that the near know, that the far know. Both far and near know, and those that neither near nor far know. There are such affirmations as these, so do not wildly imagine that just because it is beyond the recognition of this present soul in a stinking bag of skin, affirmation cannot be. Do not say that affirmation cannot easily be given, even to human features which are unenlightened. In worldly thoughts, what has usually been studied is that affirmation may be given when the merit of practice is fulfilled, and becoming Buddha is assured. But the Buddha's truth is not like that. Hearing a single phrase, sometimes following good counselors, and hearing a single phrase, sometimes following the sutras, is just the attainment of affirmation. For attaining affirmation is just the original practice of all the Buddhas, and because it is the good root of the 100 weeds. If we were to say in words what affirmation is, it may be that people who have attained affirmation are all people who have realized the ultimate. Remember, even an atom is supreme. Even an atom is in the ascendant state. Why should affirmation not be an atom? Why should affirmation not be a single Dharma? Why should affirmation not be the myriad Dharmas? Why should affirmation not be practice and experience? Why should affirmation not be the Buddhist patriarchs? Why should affirmation not be effort in pursuit of the truth? Why should affirmation not be great realization and great delusion? Affirmation is, in your generation, our school will flourish greatly in the world. And affirmation is, you are also like this, and I am also like this. affirmation is a sign. Affirmation is ambiguity. Affirmation is a face breaking into a smile. Affirmation is living and dying, going and coming. Affirmation is the whole universe in 10 directions. Affirmation is the entire universe, never having been hidden. Great Master Shu-Itsu of Gensa-in Temple is walking along with Seppo when Seppo points to the ground in front of them and says, "This plot of land is a good place to build a tombstone." Gensa says, "How high?" Seppo then looks up and down. Gensa says, "Your happy effects upon human beings and gods are undeniable. But Master, it appears that you have never dreamt of the affirmation given on Vulture Peak." Seppo says, "What would you say?" Gensa says, 7 feet or 8 feet. Gensa's present expression. It appears that the Master has never dreamt of the affirmation given on Vulture Peak. Neither says that Seppo lacks the affirmation given on Vulture Peak, nor says that Seppo has the affirmation given on Vulture Peak. It says, it appears that the Master has never dreamt of the affirmation given on Vulture Peak. The affirmation given on Vulture Peak is the eye which is worn on high. It is, "I possess the right Dharma eye treasury and the fine mind of Nirvana. I transmit them to Maha Kasyapa." Remember, in regard to the sameness of experience, at the time when Seigen gave affirmation to Sakito, that Maha Kasyapa was receiving the affirmation of Seigen, and Seigen was giving the affirmation of Shakyamuni. Therefore, it is clear that every Buddha and Patriarch is in possession of the transmission of the right Dharma eye treasury. Thus, Soke had given his affirmation to Seigen already, and when Seigen had received the affirmation of the 6th Patriarch, he was maintaining and relying upon the affirmation Seigen. At this time, what the 6th Patriarch and all the patriarchs had learned by experience was directly being put into practice through the affirmation of Seigen. This state is described as, "Clear, clear are the 100 weeds. Clear, clear is the will of the Buddhist patriarchs." So, is there any Buddhist patriarch who is other than the 100 weeds? And how could the 100 weeds be other than you and I? Do not be so stupid as to think that the dharmas with which we are equipped are necessarily recognizable and visible to us. It is not so. The dharmas which we ourselves recognize are not always our own possessions, and our own possessions are not always seen by us or recognized by us. So do not suspect that, just because affirmation is beyond our present ability to know it or to consider it, it cannot be present in us. Needless to say, the affirmation given on Vulture Peak means the affirmation given by Shakyamuni Buddha. This affirmation is the affirmation which has been given by Shakyamuni Buddha to Shakyamuni Buddha. The principle here may be that before affirmation becomes a joining together, affirmation is not given. In other words, the principle is that even where affirmation is already present, there is no obstacle to affirmation. And where affirmation has been absent, affirmation does not make something surplus. Nothing lacking, nothing surplus. This is the principle of the affirmation which has been given by all the Buddhist patriarchs to all the Buddhist patriarchs. For this reason, an ancient Buddha said, "Masters of the past and present, hold up the whisk to preach to east and south. Their great intention is deep and subtle, not easily experienced. If the masters had not given us this principle in their teachings, by means of what view could we discuss the profound?" Now, to investigate Gensa's point, in consideration of how high is a tombstone, there should be expression of the truth of how high it is. It is never 500 yojanas or 80,000 yojanas. Thus, it is not that Gensa dislikes the looking up and down. It is simply that although Seppo's happy effects upon human beings and gods are undeniable, his looking at the height of the tombstone is not what is affirmed by Shakyamuni Buddha. What attains the affirmation of Shakyamuni Buddha is an expression of the truth which is 7 feet or 8 feet. To examine the real affirmation given by Shakyamuni Buddha, we should examine it by means of an expression of the truth which is 7 feet or 8 feet. So then, setting aside for the moment the ascribing of fitness or unfitness to the expression of the truth 7 feet or 8 feet, affirmation must definitely include the affirmation of Seppo and the affirmation of Gensa. Moreover, we should express how high a tombstone is by utilizing affirmation. If we utilize anything other than affirmation to express the Buddha Dharma, it will not be an expression of the truth. But if we understand, hear, and say that our self is really ourself. The universe that realizes affirmation will definitely be present. To those in the position of giving affirmation, there has come the effort which commonly experiences the state of affirmation. It is in order to master the giving of affirmation that so limitlessly many Buddhist patriarchs have realized the right state of truth. And it is the power of the effort to give affirmation that brings out the Buddhas themselves. This is why it is said that only by reason of the one great purpose do the Buddhas appear in the world. The point here is that in the ascendant state is it inevitably non-self which receives the affirmation of non-self. This is why Buddhas receive the affirmation of Buddhas. In general, in their giving of affirmation, with a single hand they give affirmation, with both hands they give affirmation, and with 1,000 hands and eyes they give affirmation, and are given affirmation. On one occasion, the Buddha gave affirmation by holding up an udambara flower. On another occasion, he gave affirmation by taking up a robe of golden brocade. Neither of those was an enforced act. They were the words and deeds of affirmation itself. There may be affirmation received from within, and affirmation received from without. The principle of mastering within and without should be learned in practice under affirmation. Learning of the truth as affirmation is a single track of iron for 10,000 miles. Mountain still sitting as affirmation is 10,000 years in a single instant. An ancient Buddha says, following one after another, they are able to realize Buddha, and from one to the next in turn, they give affirmation. The realization of Buddha expressed here inevitably follows one moment after another, through tiny intervals that follow one after another. We realize Buddha. Through this means, the giving of affirmation turns from one moment to the next. Turning from one to the next is turning, attaining turning, and turning from one to the next is being next, attaining being next. It is, for example, the moment. The moment is activity. This activity is beyond the intentionally produced body of limited thought, is beyond the intentionally produced circumstances of limited thought, is beyond doing which is fathomed out, and is beyond the created mind. Truly, intentional production of circumstances and non-production of circumstances should both be investigated by relying utterly on the principle of turning from one moment to the next. doing and not doing, should both be investigated by relying utterly on the principle of turning from one moment to the next. That the Buddhas and the patriarchs are now being realized is because they are being turned from one moment to the next by activity. 5 Buddhas and 6 patriarchs coming from the West are being turned from one moment to the next by activity. Still more, fetching of water and carrying of firewood has continued turning from one moment to the next. The actual appearance of an existent Buddha with mind here and now is moments turning from one to the next. In regard to the extinction of an existent Buddha with mind here and now, one extinction and 2 extinctions are not to be seen as odd. Buddhas may pass through limitlessly abundant extinctions, may realize limitlessly abundant realizations of the truth, and may manifest as signs and features limitlessly abundant signs and features. This is, in one moment after another, being able to realize Buddha. It is, in one moment after another, being able to accomplish extinctions. It is, in one moment after another, being able to give affirmation, and it is, in one moment after another, being able to turn from one to the next. Turning from one moment to the next is not inherent. It is simply that which is all-pervasive and totally penetrating. Buddhas and patriarchs, now seeing each other face to face and meeting each other face to face, is one moment following after another. There is no gap whereby Buddhas and patriarchs might flee the turning from one moment to the next of their giving of affirmation. An ancient Buddha said, "Now that we have heard from the Buddha of the splendid matter of affirmation, and from one to the next in turn have received affirmation, body and mind everywhere rejoices." This says that the splendid matter of affirmation is always what we now hear from the Buddha. What we now hear from the Buddha, that onward turning from one moment to the next receives affirmation, describes body and mind everywhere rejoicing. Onward turning from one moment to the next might be we now. It may be unconnected with the self and others of past, present, and future. It might be what is heard from the Buddha, not what is heard from others. It is beyond delusion and realization, beyond living beings, and beyond grass, trees, and national lands. It is the splendid matter of affirmation which is heard from the Buddha, and it is onward turning from one moment to the next, Receiving affirmation. The fact of turning from one moment to the next cannot stop in any nook or cranny, even for an instant, and body and mind everywhere rejoices incessantly. Joyful receiving of affirmation in onward turning from one moment to the next is always commonly experienced and everywhere explored with the body, and is always commonly experienced and everywhere explored with the mind. Furthermore, because the body everywhere pervades the mind, and the mind everywhere pervades the body, the sutra says, body and mind everywhere. Just this state is the whole world, the whole of space in all directions, the whole body and the whole mind. It is, in other words, a singular state and an individual case of rejoicing. This rejoicing makes sleep and wakefulness conspicuously joyful, and makes delusion and realization joyful, at which time rejoicing and sleep, wakefulness, delusion, or realization are in immediate contact with each other, but are not tainted by each other. Thus, turning from one moment to the next, and thereby receiving affirmation, is the splendid matter of affirmation. Shakyamuni Buddha addresses 80,000 Mahasattvas through the Bodhisattva Medicine King. Medicine King, you see among this great assembly countless gods, dragon kings, yakshas, gandharvas, asuras, garudas, kinnaras, mahuragas, humans and non-humans, as well as bhikkhus, bhikkhunis, upasakas and upasikas, those who seek to be shravakas, those who seek to be pratyeka Buddhas, and those who seek the truth of Buddha. When such beings as these are all before the Buddha, hear a single rose or a single word of the Sutra of the Flower of the Wonderful Dharma, and rejoice in it, even for a single moment of consciousness, I give affirmation to them all. You will attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Thus, in the present gathering of countless multitudes, although the pursuits and the understandings of gods, dragon kings, the 4 groups and the 8 groups are different, who among them could not be of the wonderful Dharma? What does it mean to let a single word or a single verse be heard? It means that even a single moment of your own consciousness can make external things rejoice. Beings such as they are means beings of the flower of Dharma. All before the Buddha means totally inside the Buddha. Humans and non-humans, whether the distinction is delusion in regard to myriad phenomena, or whether it is a seed already planted in the 100 weeds, may be beings as they are. To beings as they are, I totally give affirmation. The state of I totally give affirmation, which is right from head to tail, is itself just the attainment of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. What passage of time might be being described by the present words after the Tathagata's extinction? 49 years, or the whole 80-year span? For the present, they may be describing the whole 80-year span. If there are any people who hear even a single verse or a single word of the Sutra of the Flower of the Wonderful Dharma, and rejoice in it for even a single moment of consciousness, does this describe the Sutra being heard by the wise, or being heard by those without wisdom? Does it describe fallible hearing or infallible hearing? If we express it for others, the expression should be, if there are any people, the Sutra is heard. Never discuss those people as beings who have wisdom, who do not have wisdom, and so on. Speak as follows. Although what hears the Sutra of the Flower of Dharma is the profound and unfathomable wisdom of countless Buddhas, when the Sutra is heard, it is always a single word. When the Sutra is heard, it is always a single verse. And when the Sutra is heard, it is always a single moment of joy. Such a moment might be my giving again affirmation of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. There is giving of affirmation again, and there is giving of affirmation to all. Do not leave affirmation at the mercy of any blundering third son of Chang. Experience it in the same state as Buddhas through painstaking effort. Rejoicing at a word or a verse may be an instance of an existent person hearing, there being no spare time to place skin, flesh, bones and marrow on top of skin, flesh, bones and marrow. To be given affirmation of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi is my own wish having been fulfilled. At the same time, it may describe countless bags of skin. It is the hopes of the many also being satisfied, and it might be countless instances of existent people hearing. There have been affirmations given by taking up a sprig of pine. There have been affirmations given by picking up Unudambara flower. There have been affirmations given by the wink of an eye, and there have been affirmations given by a face breaking into a smile. There is a past example of affirmation being transmitted with a pair of sandals. These may be so many examples of this Dharma not being able to be understood by thinking and discrimination. Affirmation is given in my body being it, and affirmation is given in your body being it. This truth can affirm the past, the present, and the future. Because the past, the present, and the future are included in the giving of affirmation, they are realized when the self is affirmed, and they are realized when the external world is affirmed. Vimalakirti says to Maitreya, Maitreya, the world-honored one, it is said, has given you affirmation that in a certain life you will attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. With which life might you accomplish the affirmation, past, future, or present? If you say a past life, I say past lives have already vanished. If a future life, future lives have not yet come. If the present life does not abide at all. According to the Buddha's preaching, just in the now, Bhikkhu, you live and age and die. If affirmation is accomplished through non-birth, the non-birth is just the right state. But in the right state, there is neither receiving affirmation nor attaining Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. So how, Maitreya, can you receive affirmation for a certain life? Are you expecting to accomplish the affirmation by following the appearance of reality? Are you expecting to accomplish the affirmation by following the disappearance of reality? If you expect to accomplish the affirmation through the appearance of reality, I say reality does not have appearance. If you expect to accomplish the affirmation through the disappearance of reality, I say reality does not have disappearance. All living beings are just reality. All dharmas are also just reality. Saints and sages are also just reality, and even you, Maitreya, are also just reality. If Maitreya is able to receive affirmation, all living beings must receive affirmation too. Why? Because reality is not dual and not differentiated. If Maitreya attains Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, all living beings must attain it too. Why? Because all living beings are just the manifestation of Bodhi. The Tathagata does not say that what Vimalakirti says is wrong. At the same time, Maitreya's accomplishment of affirmation has already been assured. Therefore, all living beings' accomplishment of affirmation must likewise be assured. Without the affirmation of living beings, the affirmation of Maitreya could not be, for indeed all living beings are just the manifestation of Bodhi. Bodhi receives the affirmation of Bodhi, and the reception of affirmation is life today. Thus, because all living beings establish the mind together with Maitreya, it is a common reception of affirmation, and it may be a common realization of the truth. But from Vimalakirti's words, in the right state, there is no receiving affirmation. Vimalakirti seems not to know that the right state is just affirmation, and he seems not to be saying that the right state is just Bodhi. Again, he says, for instance, that past lives have already vanished, future lives have not yet come, and the present life does not abide. But the past is not necessarily already vanished. The future is not necessarily yet to come, and the present is not necessarily non-abiding. When studying such attributes as non-abiding, not yet come, and already vanished, as the past, the future, and the present, we should always express the principle that what has not yet come is just the past, the present, and the future. There may be, then, a principle that appearance and disappearance both accomplish affirmation, and a principle that appearance and disappearance both attain Bodhi. When all living beings accomplish affirmation, Maitreya also accomplishes affirmation. Now, Vimalakirti, I ask you, is Maitreya the same as all living beings, or is he different? Try to say something, and I will test you. You have said already that if Maitreya accomplishes affirmation, all living beings will also accomplish affirmation. If you are saying that Maitreya is other than living beings cannot be living beings, and Maitreya cannot be Maitreya. Is this not so? Just at such a moment, even Vimalakirti could not be Vimalakirti. If he were not Vimalakirti, this expression of his would be useless. In conclusion, we can say that when affirmation makes all living beings exist, all living beings and Maitreya exist, affirmation can make everything exist. Written at Kanondori Kosho Horinji Temple on the 25th day of the 4th lunar month in the summer of the 3rd year of Ninji. Copied in the attendant monks' quarters of Kippoji Temple in Eshu on the 20th day of the 1st lunar month in the 2nd year of Kangen.